The server room smells like ozone and bad decisions. I know that smell better than I know my own kitchen. 16 years of breathing it, 16 years of crawling under server racks, chasing phantom alerts at 2 a.m., explaining to people who've never touched a circuit board why their simple request could collapse a $42 million federal contract. My name is Gary Hollis. I'm 54 years old. And 3 weeks ago, a 29-year-old with a Wharton MBA and his father's business card tried to replace me with an offshore team he found through a vendor directory. I want to tell you exactly how that went. I grew up in Beaumont, Texas. Didn't go to college, went to trade school instead. Got my electrician's cert. Spent a few years doing industrial electrical work on refinery sites along the Gulf Coast. Learned fast that I liked systems, not just fixing them, understanding them, how everything connects, how one failed component in the right place can take down something 10 times its size. That instinct eventually walked me into defense contracting, and by the time I was 38, I was running the entire communications infrastructure for Hargrove Defense Solutions in San Antonio. Held a Navy contract, Project Neptune 7, $42 million, tactical communications encryption for active operations. Not glamorous work, not the kind of thing that gets you a plaque in the lobby, but the kind of thing where, if it fails at the wrong moment, people in the field lose comms. I don't need to explain what that means. I built that system from the ground up. Every security layer, every failsafe, every protocol. The 180-page operations manual I finished in my 3rd year there, that was just the foundation. The real knowledge lived in my head. The quirks, the ghosts in the machine, the fact that Rack 7's backup server runs hot after midnight diagnostics and needs a manual cooldown cycle or it'll trip the thermal cutoff. The fact that the Navy uplink requires a physical authentication handshake every 6 hours, or the system assumes hostile intrusion and locks everything down. Nobody else knew any of that. And on a Tuesday afternoon, that became somebody else's problem. Bad news always comes on a Tuesday. I don't know why. But after enough years in this industry, you start noticing the patterns. I was running a routine diagnostic on the primary uplink array when my phone buzzed. Text from HR 4 words, "Come to conference room 4B." Then a second text, "Bring your badge." Those 2 texts together mean one thing. I've seen it happen to other people. Never thought I'd see my own name on the list. I took the elevator to the 8th floor. The air up there was always too cold, like the executives needed to keep something refrigerated. Waiting for me was Nate Wexford, CFO. 29 years old, 9 weeks on the job. Princeton undergrad, Wharton MBA, and the son of Earl Wexford, our CEO, which explained the title and the corner office and the complete absence of anything resembling operational experience. He was sitting at the head of the conference table like he was about to deliver a keynote. Suit that cost more than my truck payment, hands folded, the kind of practiced calm that people wear when they've rehearsed something uncomfortable. "Gary," he said, "we've completed a comprehensive operational cost review. Your department's expense-to-output ratio is significantly above industry benchmarks. We've identified a more cost-effective solution, an offshore technical support team, dynamic, tech-forward. They'll be onboarded tomorrow morning. We'll need your credentials and access tokens by end of business today." I looked at him. Really looked. Searched his face for any sign, any flicker, that he understood what he was actually saying. What system he was talking about. What access tokens meant in the context of a classified DoD contract. Found nothing. Just confidence and a good haircut. "Nate," I said, keeping my voice level, "does this team have federal security clearances? Do they understand NISPOM compliance, ITR regulations? Because if they don't, you're not just ending a vendor relationship. You're violating federal law." He smiled the smile of someone who has never personally experienced a consequence. "Gary, you technical guys always overcomplicate things. It's infrastructure management. We handle compliance at the executive level. Don't worry about the big picture." The infrastructure he was describing was the encryption backbone for Navy tactical communications. The kind of system where a security failure doesn't mean a bad news cycle. It means operators in active theaters lose contact at the worst possible moment. I could have explained that. I could have walked him through every regulation, every clearance requirement, every federal statute he was about to step on. But you can't teach someone to care about something they've already decided doesn't matter. I sat there for about 10 seconds. The anger was real. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. 16 years, I built that system wire by wire. But underneath the anger was something else, something quieter and colder. The same feeling I used to get on refinery sites when I could tell a system was about to fail. Everything slows down, everything gets clear, and you just start making decisions. Okay, I said. Nate blinked. That wasn't what he was expecting. He'd braced for an argument, maybe some desperation. Not okay. Okay, I said again. You're the boss, Nate. Cost optimization, fresh thinking. I understand completely. I unclipped my security badge and set it on the conference table. Reached in my shirt pocket and placed the RSA authentication token right next to it. Soft click. Deliberate. I wanted him to hear it. I assume your new team is fully briefed and ready to take over system operations at midnight tonight? Completely seamless transition, he said, already half looking at his laptop screen. Pack your personal items and clear out by end of day. I walked back to the elevator, rode it down to the basement, walked through the server room one last time, not rushing, just walking. Grabbed my coffee mug, the one that says San Antonio Strong, grabbed the framed photo of my lab, Diesel, sitting on the porch back home, grabbed the Klein screwdriver I'd had since my first job out of trade school, left the documentation behind, left the operations manual, left the sticky notes on rack 7 explaining the cooldown procedure, left everything that would have taken the next team months to figure out if they were qualified to figure it out at all. Walked through the parking garage to my F2050 2019 dark blue diesel, paid off 3 years ago, sat in the cab for a moment, started the engine, pulled out onto the street. On the way home, I stopped at a gas station and bought a 6-pack of Shiner Bock, because technically I wasn't unemployed. I was just no longer responsible for other people's problems. Here's something nobody tells you about building a system from scratch. When you design every layer yourself, every security protocol, every failsafe, every automated response, that system starts to think like you, not literally. But the logic you baked into it, the assumptions you made, the contingencies you planned for, all of it reflects how you see the world. And when someone who doesn't understand any of that tries to walk in and take over, the system doesn't accommodate them. It just does exactly what you told it to do. I knew what was coming. I knew it the moment I set that RSA token on the conference table. I got home around 5 p.m. Small house off Culebra Road, nothing fancy, but the porch faces west and the sunsets are good. Diesel heard the truck and was waiting at the door. 80 pounds of yellow lab who has no idea what defense contracting is and has never once cared about my job title. I led him out back, cracked open a Shiner, and sat in the lawn chair I keep next to the AC unit. Thought about calling my brother in Beaumont, decided against it. Thought about eating something. Didn't. Watched Diesel chase a mockingbird across the yard until the sun went down, then went inside and put the TV on without really watching it. At some point, I moved to the couch. The leather on it is cracked from years of use, and the left cushion sinks in a way that probably isn't great for my back. I've been meaning to replace it for 3 years. I sat there with the second Shiner and thought about the authentication handshake. The Navy uplink runs a verification sequence every 6 hours. It's designed to confirm that the system is still operating under authorized control, that no one has swapped out the hardware, rerouted the connections, or compromised the security envelope. If the handshake doesn't complete, the system interprets it as a hostile intrusion attempt and initiates full lockdown. I built that protocol in year 2, after a DoD audit flagged a gap in our continuity verification. It took me 4 months to implement correctly. The offshore team didn't have the protocol keys. Those were on the RSA token sitting on Nate Wexford's conference table, probably still there next to whatever was left of his afternoon coffee. The handshake was scheduled for midnight. At 11:52 p.m., my personal phone lit up on the coffee table. I'd built the alert architecture myself, hard-coded my personal number into the catastrophic failure notification tree back in year 1. In all the chaos of packing up my desk, I'd never gotten around to removing it. I'm going to go ahead and call that an oversight. The first alert read, unrecognized IP, attempting administrative access on secure network. I picked up the Shiner, took a sip, watched the screen. Incorrect credentials, attempt 2 of 3. Incorrect credentials, attempt 3 of 3 maximum login attempts exceeded. Initiating Protocol 7, there it is. Protocol 7 is what I think of as the system's survival instinct. It doesn't just block access, it assumes the worst and starts building a record. Every keystroke gets logged. Every IP gets traced through 7 proxy layers. Timestamps, geographic locations, access attempt sequences, all of it gets packaged into an automated evidence file with legal citations already attached. The kind of file that federal prosecutors appreciate receiving pre-organized, and unlike most security alerts that go to an internal help desk, Protocol 7 sends its notifications directly to Navy Information Systems Command in Virginia. The offshore team didn't quit. People who work off scripts never do. They just keep running the same commands, expecting a different result. My phone buzzed again. They were trying to tunnel through port 8880 using standard commercial remote desktop software, the kind you download free from the internet, on a classified DoD network. That's not troubleshooting anymore. That's a federal crime, and the system was now logging it as one. I couldn't just sit there watching notification after notification stack up on my phone. So around 1:30 in the morning, I drove to the Whataburger on Fredericksburg Road, 24 hours, decent coffee, and nobody asks questions at 1:30 a.m. I took a booth by the window, ordered black coffee and a slice of pie that had clearly been under the heat lamp since the previous administration, and opened my laptop. Now, what I did next was not illegal. I want to be clear about that. Nate had revoked my network credentials, taken my RSA token, locked me out of every system that touched the classified infrastructure. What he had not done because he didn't know it existed was revoke my access to the building's physical security network. The cameras, badge readers, environmental monitoring, and HVAC controls all ran on a completely separate legacy system. A system I also maintained, a system nobody told me to hand over credentials for. I typed in the IP address, pulled up the camera grid. 16 feeds. Empty offices, the cleaning crew long gone, and then camera 4, the server room, and I felt my stomach drop just a little, even though I was expecting it. Every status LED on the main communications frame was cycling red, not a warning blink. A full cycle, the kind that means the system has gone into active defensive mode. The cooling fans were running at maximum capacity. I could tell because the ventilation grills in the camera feed were visibly vibrating. On camera 2, a workstation monitor flickered to life in the empty bullpen. Someone had left a machine logged in. The offshore team had found it. They were remote controlling it from overseas, trying to use a regular office PC as a stepping stone into the classified network. The mouse cursor jerked across the screen. Windows opened and closed. Command prompt, network settings. Registry editor. I said quietly, to my coffee cup, "Don't touch the registry." They touched the registry. Modifying core network configuration settings inside a classified enclave triggers one specific automated response. The system concludes the internal network is being hijacked by hostile actors. Full lockdown. Every door closes at once. On camera 4, every light in the server room went solid red, all of them simultaneously. The remote desktop window on camera 2 froze mid-click, then went dark. The offshore team had just locked themselves out of everything, including the regular office network they'd been using as a ladder. I took a bite of the pie. Tasted like cardboard soaked in artificial cherry. When Protocol 7 initiates full lockdown, it also seals the HVAC dampers. Fire prevention stops flames from spreading through ventilation systems. Clean logic. The problem is that without active airflow, a server room becomes a very expensive oven. The temperature overlay in the corner of camera 4 reads 79 peri 8, then 83, then 87. At 91 Mirahath the thermal protection system triggers building-wide emergency protocols. Those protocols don't call the IT help desk. They go directly to Colorado Springs Fire Department. And when fire crews respond to a facility containing classified Navy equipment, federal law requires them to notify a liaison before taking any action inside the building. The waitress came by and topped off my coffee without being asked. I nodded at her, watched the temperature gauge climb. There was a moment, I'll be honest about this, where I thought about calling Nate, waking him up, telling him what was happening, walking him through the reset procedure. I sat with that thought for about 30 seconds. Then I thought about him sitting across that conference table smiling, saying, "Don't worry about the big picture." I put the phone face down on the Formica and ordered another slice of pie. Around 3 a.m. the Whataburger got quiet enough that I could hear the fluorescent lights humming. The trucker 2 booths over had fallen asleep over his coffee. The waitress, her name tag said Loretta, was restocking the condiment station and pretending not to notice that I'd been sitting there for 90 minutes staring at a laptop screen. My phone had gone from buzzing every few minutes to buzzing almost constantly. I unlocked it and scrolled through the stack. Critical thermal threshold exceeded in primary communications bay. Critical heartbeat signal lost. Authentication server alpha. Critical heartbeat signal lost. Authentication server beta. Critical environmental systems offline. Manual intervention required. And then the one that changes the category of the problem entirely. Federal compliance alert. Unauthorized access escalation. Level red. Multiple agencies notified. Immediate response required. Level red. In government contracting, that phrase has a specific meaning that has nothing to do with how serious you think the situation is. Level green means everything is normal. Level yellow means someone forgot a password. Level orange means potential incident, investigate immediately. Level red means one thing. Assume the facility has been compromised by hostile foreign intelligence. Data integrity cannot be verified. Chain of custody is broken. All personnel are considered suspects until cleared. Level red doesn't send an email. It sends an encrypted high-priority alert directly to Navy Information Systems Command, FBI Cyber Division, and the Department of Homeland Security, simultaneously, automatically, with timestamps, IP traces, and a pre-formatted incident summary. I pictured the watch officer at Navy NISCOM in Virginia, some lieutenant sitting at a wall of monitors at 3 a.m. coffee going cold, and then a red indicator blinking on his threat assessment dashboard. He'd pull up the contract details. Hargrove Defense Solutions, San Antonio, Project Neptune 7, status, compromised. He'd pick up the secure line and start making calls. One of those calls would eventually reach Nate Wexford. I finished my coffee, left Loretta a good tip. Drove home through empty streets with the windows down, the kind of warm San Antonio night that smells like cut grass and distant rain. Got home, let diesel out one more time, then sat on the edge of the bed and set my phone on the nightstand. It started ringing at 4:18 a.m. I let the first call go to voicemail, and the second and the third. Around 4:45, I picked up the phone and played them back. Voicemail 1, 4:18 a.m., Nate Wexford. Gary, it's Nate. We're getting some automated alerts, looks like a glitch in the legacy system. I need the shutdown codes to stop these alarms. The offshore team says the credentials aren't working. Call me back as soon as you get this. Tone annoyed, still in charge. Still using the phrase legacy system like that explained anything. Voicemail 2, 4:52 a.m., Gary, the team is completely locked out. Everything. They can't access anything. Did you do something before you left? If you deliberately damaged company systems, our legal team will. Just call me back. Please. The please at the end was new. Small crack in the concrete. Voicemail 3, 5:20 a.m. Okay, Gary. I have a Navy commander on another line asking about chain of custody documentation for the contract. I can't find the compliance files. You said you left documentation. It's not where I expected it to be. Just call me back. We can bring you in as a consultant for a few hours. Whatever your rate is, just call. Consultant. 12 hours ago, I was too expensive to keep on payroll. Now he wanted to negotiate a consulting rate at 5 a.m. Voicemail 4, 5:47 a.m. Gary, the fire department is here. Clyde, the night guard, called them because the server room temperature alarm went off. They're saying the air conditioning is completely dead and they can't restart it without an administrator code. I don't understand why the air conditioning has an administrator code. Why does everything have a code? Please just call me back. I almost felt something close to sympathy on that one. Almost. Then I remembered, don't worry about the big picture. Voicemail 5, 6:15 a.m. Gary, federal agents just walked into the building. Real agents, not local. FBI. They're asking for the Information Systems Security Officer. That's you. I told them you were unavailable due to recent personnel changes, and they said to find you immediately. Please. Whatever rate you want. Just make this stop. Just make this stop. I played that last one twice. Not because I enjoyed it, though I won't pretend there wasn't some satisfaction in it. I played it twice because I needed to hear the full weight of what had happened settle into his voice. 9 weeks on the job, a title his father handed him, and one Tuesday's worth of cost optimization had put him in a room with federal agents at 6 a.m. explaining why foreign nationals without security clearances had spent 4 hours hammering on a classified Navy communication system. I got up, showered, stood in front of the closet for a moment deciding what to wear. Not a suit. I didn't work there anymore. Jeans, work boots, black button down, clean and pressed. I wanted to look exactly like what I was, the contractor they couldn't afford to lose, who was about to walk back in not as an employee, but as the only person in San Antonio who knew how to fix what they'd broken. Made a full pot of coffee, drank 1 cup standing at the kitchen counter, did not call Nate back. At 6:40 a.m., my phone rang one final time, private number. DC area code. I recognized the prefix. I let it ring to the last second, then picked up. This is Gary Hollis. Mr. Hollis. The voice had the density of someone who has spent decades giving orders and having them followed. No preamble, no pleasantries. This is Admiral Lou Granger, Navy Information Systems Command. Do not hang up this phone. I'm listening, Admiral. Your name and credentials appear on all primary security protocols for contract Neptune 7. The current facility management cannot access essential systems. Data integrity is unverified. We are implementing containment measures. Are you aware of the situation at Hargrove Defense Solutions? I am, Admiral. As of yesterday afternoon, my employment was terminated by the company. I was informed I was too expensive for their new operational framework. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. You were terminated, he said, slowly, the words landing one at a time, without proper security handover protocols, as the designated ISO on a $42 million classified Navy contract. They replaced me with an offshore team, sir. I was told it would be a seamless transition. I heard him exhale through his nose, slow and controlled, but not quiet. Mr. Hollis, I am formally requesting your immediate assistance, not as an employee of Hargrove Defense Solutions, but as a cleared United States citizen with critical operational knowledge. Can you report to the facility within 30 minutes? I can be there in 20, Admiral. Outstanding. Federal escort will meet you at the security perimeter. Bring government-issued identification. The line went dead. I set the phone on the counter, picked up my keys, and headed for the door. The drive to Hargrove Defense Solutions normally takes 18 minutes from my house. I made it in 15. Not because I was rushing. I just hit every green light on Culebro Road, which felt like the universe offering a small courtesy after a long night. When I turned onto Corporate Drive, I slowed down. It looked like a scene from a news broadcast that hadn't aired yet. 4 black SUVs with federal plates parked at angles across the visitor lot. An FBI cyber forensics van backed up to the side entrance. 2 Colorado Springs fire units staged on the street. Engines running. Local police had blocked civilian access at both ends of the block. A small group of early arriving office workers stood on the sidewalk across the street, badges around their necks, coffee cups in hand, watching the building like they weren't sure if they still had jobs. And standing near the main entrance, off to the side, not quite in anyone's way but not going anywhere either, was Nate Wexford. He looked like a different person than the one who'd sat across from me in conference room 4B yesterday afternoon. The suit was the same expensive charcoal gray, but it had the wrinkled look of someone who'd gotten dressed in a hurry in the dark. His tie was loosened. His hair, which had been carefully put together 24 hours ago, was doing something unplanned. He was holding his phone in both hands, staring at the screen, and I could tell from the way his shoulders were set that he was not reading good news. I pulled up to the federal checkpoint at the entrance, rolled down the window. Gary Hollis. Admiral Granger is expecting me. The agent checked a printed list on a clipboard, found my name, and stepped back, waved me through with 2 fingers. I parked the F-250 in the first open spot, which happened to be the one closest to the entrance. Got out, tucked my driver's license in my shirt pocket, where it was easy to reach, and walked toward the building. I had to pass Nate to get to the door. He saw me coming. I watched his expression cycle through several things in about 2 seconds. Recognition, then something that might have been relief, then something that was definitely not relief when he registered what I was wearing and what that meant. Jeans and work boots. Don't walk into a building to fix a problem for free. He opened his mouth. I kept walking. Not fast, not slow. Just walking the way you walk when you're going somewhere specific and you don't have anything to prove. Admiral Lou Granger met me just inside the lobby. Late 50s dress uniform, the kind of posture that doesn't switch off. He had 2 people with him. A woman in a dark blazer with a federal ID clipped to her lapel, and a younger man carrying a tablet and looking like he hadn't slept either. Granger extended his hand and shook mine once, firmly. Mr. Hollis? Thank you for coming. Yes, sir. Walk me through what we're dealing with. We moved toward the elevator. I talked while we walked Protocol 7, the HVAC lockdown, the authentication failure sequence, the offshore team's access attempts through port 8080. Granger listened without interrupting, which is the mark of someone who actually wants information rather than confirmation of what they already think. In the elevator, I said, the cooling system can be restarted from the basement environmental panel with the administrator override code. Once the temperature in the server room drops below 82 Pirichmer case, the dampers will reopen automatically. From there, I can restore the authentication handshake and bring the uplink back online. Full system verification will take about 2 hours. How long for the cooling restart? 20 minutes if nothing burned out. Maybe 40 if the thermal cutoff tripped on any of the rack units. Granger nodded. Do it. The server room was exactly what I expected. Every status indicator cycling red, the air already noticeably warm when the door opened. The fans running at a pitch that meant they'd been at maximum capacity for hours. The temperature overlay on the environmental panel read 91 first at the edge. I went to the administrator panel, entered the override sequence, 14 characters, which I had memorized the same week I wrote it, and initiated the cooling restart. The fans shifted tone within 30 seconds, not quieter, but different, purposeful instead of desperate. While we waited for the temperature to drop, Granger stood in the doorway and asked me questions. How long had I been the ISSO on Neptune 7? What the clearance requirements were for anyone accessing the system? Whether proper handover protocols had been followed when my employment was terminated? I answered everything directly. His assistant was taking notes on the tablet. At some point during that conversation, I didn't see exactly when, because my back was to the lobby, Nate Wexford came inside. I know because I heard his voice in the hallway talking to someone, the tone still carrying traces of the executive register he'd used with me yesterday, explaining something. Then I heard a different voice, flat and official, ask him to please come with them. Then I heard footsteps going the other direction. I didn't turn around. The temperature gauge read 87 Pirhe Hatheth, then 84. Then slowly 81. The dampers clicked open. Fresh air moved through the room. The fans settled into their normal operational hum, the sound I'd been hearing for 16 years, the sound that means everything is working the way it's supposed to. I entered the authentication key sequence. 14 characters again, different string. The system ran its verification protocol. 15 seconds that felt longer than they were. And then, rack by rack, starting from the primary communications frame and moving outward, the status LEDs shifted. Red to amber. Amber to green. All of them. Admiral Granger watched it happen from the doorway. He didn't say anything for a moment. Just looked at the lights. Then, how long did it take you to build all of this? 16 years, I said. He nodded slowly. It shows. I spent the next several hours briefing his team, walked them through the full system architecture, the security protocols, the documentation I'd left behind, answered every question they had, twice if they needed it. Around noon, Granger pulled me aside and told me that Hargrove's contract status was under formal review and that he'd be recommending a mandatory security audit before operations could resume. He said my cooperation was noted in the official incident report. He also said, without elaborating, that the personnel decisions made in the 24 hours prior to the incident would be part of that review. I didn't ask him to say more than that. Earl Wexford signed a consent agreement that afternoon. I wasn't in the room for it, but Pete Dunmore, one of the federal liaisons I'd been working with all morning, mentioned it in passing while we were going through compliance files. Earl surrendered authority over security personnel decisions for the duration of the federal review. The offshore team's contract was terminated and referred for investigation. I didn't ask about Nate specifically. Some things you don't need to follow up on. Around 2 p.m., someone brought me a cup of coffee. I took it and stood in the server room for a few minutes by myself. Just standing there, listening to the fans run at normal speed, watching green lights blink steady across every rack. That's all it ever was, really. Keeping the lights green. Making sure the system ran the way it was supposed to run every hour of every day, whether anyone upstairs noticed or not. Turns out that's worth a lot more than what it costs to maintain. Nate Wexford needed one Tuesday night to learn that. 16 years was what it cost to teach him. Real expertise doesn't disappear when you clean out your desk. It just waits until the people who dismissed it are desperate enough to ask for it back. The most expensive thing in any organization isn't the guy who knows how everything works. It's the moment you find out what happens when he's gone.